Howdy, howdy, welcome back, welcome back. We're gonna start off with another good video. So the gaming industry is shattering and it's about time. Um, my guest is gonna talk about, the downfall of these big studios like Ubisoft, EA, uh, probably Concord from Sony. Basically, any major game that has not made money. It would be my guess. I'll give my own thoughts on it probably in while watching this or after. We'll see. But you know the dealio. Give Legendary Drop some love, and let's get into the video.
You can feel it. I can feel it. The games we're playing today are getting bigger, they're getting more expensive, they're getting more beautiful, yet at the exact same time, for whatever reason, they're less fulfilling than they've ever been. Not all of them, but a lot of them. How many times over the last couple of years have you guys sat down and played a game and just expected more from it?
Honestly, Stalker 2. What other game have I bought? The problem is I don't really buy games on day one. The only ones I've done that were Stalker 2, Baldur's Gate 3. I'll probably buy Outer Wild, or not Outer Wilds, Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe at day one. Maybe. That's a big maybe on that one. Trying to think if there's any other. I don't. Like when I bought Cyberpunk, I knew it was going to be bad, but yeah, it was. But for me, like I know a lot of other people had issues with the game. The only thing I had was the occasional stuttering on console. But like it wasn't unplayable. If anything, I guess I lucked out. So I didn't really hop on the cyberpunk hate train. Uh, Baldur's Gate was just phenomenal. Literally, that will be game of the century. I don't think any game will become what Baldur's Gate 3 became. Uh, I didn't really buy any other game like Black Myth Wukong or any of those, so I can't really say. But and Cyberpunk, or not Cyberpunk. Yeah, about Stalker 2. Not even for like how buggy it was, just for like the lack of content that was in the game. It didn't feel like a Stalker game. It felt like a Metro slash Call of Duty campaign. It did not feel good. The only thing good was the Monolith part, where all the ex Monolith are returning back to Monolith. But other than that, even the brother fight was mid at best, more annoying than mid. The final boss, when spoiler alerts, when you're at Circa finally, and it gets attacked, and all the devices he's been collecting or anomalies start spawning because of they all get activated or something. I don't really remember it. Other than that, yeah, like I beat it. It's done. I don't think I'll probably re-download it if there's ever a DLC. But yeah, the lack of content, like an open world game where your weapon and armor degrade and you're not gonna install a player repair system when there was already a mod from your older titles that allowed it. Like that was wild to me. I don't know why they didn't think of that. I ain't saying you gotta take everything from someone's mod and put it into your next video game, but you could take liberties and be like, yo, this mod, we're about to make an open world Stalker. We should probably add a little bit more into the open world aspect. I would love to see more survivors like at sites, like different like sites, and having like a faction war, or I don't know. They could have done better. I already rated it. You can go check out all my Stalker videos. My highest view now is 2,000, and it's from the Bloodsucker mission. A lot of people probably come from that video to watch. Hopefully, keep watching. But let's get back into it.
Because it was a bad game, but because you saw the potential in it, and it wasn't there. You know, one of the things that I try to do on this channel is to actually look into the reasons why players are frustrated in the first place. Not just talk about industry drama or, you know,
and you can't really blame Stalker 2 because of the whole war. They probably lost a lot of time. And so they were just trying to make sure their game does come out. But, you know,
developer missteps and things like that, but actually try to figure out why players are frustrated in the first place. And I was watching Shangri-La Frontier, an anime. I'm sitting back thinking to myself, I wish that MMOs were as good as they were in anime. I wish video games were as good as they were in anime. The mechanics that they show off, the power scaling, the abilities,
I have watched Shangri-La. I didn't finish fully season 1. I think it was like on episode 20. It's 24 episodes. So I got close to the ending. I did watch SAO, and I got a hot take. I don't think it's that hot of a take, but I think SAO sucked. And this is why it sucked. It was way too fast paced. They were speed running through it. Like each episode could have been like a whole like a storyline that they could have followed through with, and they didn't. Like literally by episode I think 4 or 5, he got a love interest. Episode 6, they had a robot kid or whatever, AI kid, because it's not even a real person; it's the NPC thing. Episode 8, 9, he's almost dead. She falls in love. They fall in love. They want to get married. If they survive, like it felt way too fast paced. And then I skipped season 2 because of the whole gun arc. I didn't like it. I'm trying. Season 3 was good, but I mean, it's at that point you're invested. Like if you could manage the first 2 seasons, and good on you to finish it. But in my opinion, it was ass. Shangri-La, from what I've seen, was good. But there's a lot of like these MMO isekai or MMO just video game type things. My favorite, hands down, is still Overlord. So
themes that they go into, how some of the scenarios play out, the sense of adventure. These things should be in video games. I mean, they're being inspired by video games in the first place. So why aren't they there? And then I came across an interview with Konrad Tomaskovitz. I hope that I didn't completely murder that name, but he's the ex-director of The Witcher 3 and ex-co-director of Cyberpunk 2077. And he left CD Projekt Red to go start his own studio, something smaller, something more independent, something free. A studio that he worked at for 20 years, over 20 years. He turned them into an RPG powerhouse. Why would he do something like that? And after reading his interview, it confirms something that I've been thinking for a long time. This industry is too big to move forward, too big to do anything new. But before we dive into that, a word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Starforge. Yeah, that's right. If you guys have noticed, the piece along sleek and sees where display some true theories, owner rats, and detail loves Starforge. Former CD generalizing a little red talent called Rebel Wolves revealed their debut title in the blood of the Dawnwalker. Now I'm generalizing a little bit for time's sake. However, the game.
I don't know if y'all seen this. This is a vampire. Here's my problem. And I think this dude's gonna run into the same situation as when people are making new studios. Let's take Obsidian for example. They're not new, but let's just use them as an example. When they left Fallout Bethesda after Fallout New Vegas, and yes, there was a lot of bad things that were done to them because of ZeniMax or whoever. They left. Uh, they have still to this day kept using the whole "we are the creators of Fallout New Vegas" in no matter what game they make. And I'm hoping this guy with his new studio doesn't do that with saying, "Hey, I was the co-writer and director for Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk." Like I hope like it's fine to do that in the beginning because you do want people to be like, "Oh, wait, it's this dude." And hopefully that they keep coming back. But like don't pull a Obsidian and constantly keep using it. That's just my hope, at least.
Game seems to be a Witcher-like title where you take up arms as a half vampire, half human to reclaim your family who's been taken by vampires, and they have essentially enslaved the human population while exacting a blood tax. A really...
I don't know if they're doing a blood tax. It seems they're just killing for the plague that's happening. And even the king in this trailer, the guy that was riding the horse just now, he says, "Did I pass a law stating that children may survive?" And he looks at his fellow soldiers and they shake their head or say no. Like,
cool premise for a game, but it begs the question as to why a 20-year executive level employee at CD Projekt Red would leave one of the most prestigious studios in the entire industry to essentially go and start over from scratch. I mean, there is a lot of risk involved.
And the thing is, a lot of people move on because it's difference of opinions. Like, it's like putting all your creativity with multiple people in one basket and hoping the basket remains a basket, if you know what I mean. Like, you're hoping everything fits into what you want as, like, the lead. But some people might be like, "No, I don't want that in there." Or, "Hey, we should put this out. So we should trade out this and put in this." And it starts becoming a thing. It's just difference of opinions and difference of creativity. And that's the problem is that, in my opinion, there's a lot of people in the gaming realm that have way too big of a difference, and they try to force their differences on the players. Whereas you look at Velgar and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, you're trying to make a political point, and that doesn't sit well with gamers because politics, in my opinion, shouldn't be in video games. Don't matter what side you believe in. You should be creating a story, and since you're in a fantasy setting, it should be a fantasy story. It should have nothing to do with the real world, because most gamers play to escape. I do. That's my number one reason why I play video games. I want to escape. I want to de-associate. And that's one game I'm struggling if I want to buy Dragon's Dogma 2 because I heard it's bad. But I know the character creation is somewhat good. And I love character creators. I really love them. We gotta see how this Enzion, the Sims clone, we're gonna see how that is. I do have the character creator still. That character creator, oh my god, it looks way too good. I'm hoping the base game is good, but we'll get back to the video.
Involved. A risk few would take. You're putting your career, livelihood, and reputation on the line, and there has to be a pretty damn good reason for that. Well, come to find out, risk is the exact reason why they left. In an interview written by Robert Jones of PC Gamer titled The Witcher 3's director explains why he had to leave CD Projekt Red to make his dream vampire RPG.
See? Difference of creativity and opinions. They want to try something new that probably CD Projekt Red themselves are like, yeah, I don't think we should pull the trigger on this. It seems too much of a risk. And he's like, okay, well, I'll leave and I'll go make it. And he's gonna take a risk if it's gonna make money or not. From what I've seen of this trailer, it looks really good, but this is all CGI. There's no gameplay, I don't think, at all. If I remember
We had
correctly.
crazy ideas. Robert writes, for PC Gamer Magazine's upcoming The Blood of the Dawnwalker issue, I flew out to Warsaw to visit Rebel Wolves and speak to a number of its key devs, including founder Konrad Tomaskovitz, best known for being the director of The Witcher 3, one of gaming's greatest fantasy RPG experiences. Tomaskovitz also worked as co-director on Cyberpunk 2077 before leaving CDPR. The obvious question is why an established and proven director would feel the need to move on from somewhere they had helped to such success. I set up Rebel Wolves because I felt I wanted to make something that was unique with my friends, says Tomaskovich. Of course, we have a huge love for RPG games and what has been done before in the past, but I feel those things, those rules of RPG games can be expanded and evolved. We have crazy ideas. We knew that, if we wanted to make them, we would need to open our own studio because it would be too hard to convince a big company, with non-IP to change and do something new and do something.
That's also the problem with these big companies is that a lot of them don't want to take risk. And back then, I would blame them because I know there have been a lot of good games that have been canceled only because they didn't want to pull the trigger on it, and some of them were really good. I think they would have done crazy numbers, but they were just too afraid. And now, if you look, a lot of games are just copy clones of each other because why make a new format if the old format is still working? That's the problem. And I think the only way to fix it is that all these big studios just have to start losing talent or lack of talent, start getting I don't know how much numbers you need, but they got to start losing money. Investors need to start pulling out. The problem with gaming, I think, is it got way too big because of COVID. A lot of people were trapped in their homes, didn't know what to do, so they thought, "Hey, I could game. Let's try this gaming out." And it kind of rushed forward a little bit too quickly of what gaming should be like, and a lot of people don't know what gaming's like. If you know what I mean. So I think a lot of studios are just going to lose like 20+ year talent. They're going to go try to make a new studio or join a small studio and make these crazy ideas, and hopefully that they stick. If they don't work out, they don't work out. It's a risk. That's what making video games should be. It should be making a risk, creating a masterpiece. I mean, look at Baldur's Gate 3. It's just a typical D&D format, and oh my god, they made millions, and they won Game of the Years and all the other trophies. Oops.
Something crazy. Actually, it's risky because we're doing some solutions which are new. And there it is, a few words that speak volumes. The vast majority of the biggest titles across the entire industry are legacy IP, long-standing franchises, well-known names that have built empires: Assassin's Creed, Diablo, Call of Duty, The Witcher, God of War, Halo, and the list goes on. Most of the
Other than Witcher, every other game that he just lists, in my opinion, are failing because they're afraid to take a risk. They own these IPs that are like 10+ years going in the making, and they're afraid to change the format. Even Call of Duty. I haven't bought a Call of Duty game since 2019. And 2019 wasn't really changing the format. It was going back to the old formats of like the older CODs. Assassin's Creed, ever since they got rid of the assassin part, I had never bothered playing. Black Flag was the last one I played. In my opinion, that's from Black Flag and upwards, they all started to suck. Syndicate sucked. Unity sucked. Uh, I don't even know the others offhand. The one with the Greek gods or whatever. I forget the name of that one. That one sucked. Valhalla sucked. I didn't even bother with Valhalla. I just watched a live streamer. I watched Uber Nova play it, and he did not like it. So
Biggest publishers have their crown jewel and oftentimes avoid investing in new IPs or even iterating on their existing ones in meaningful ways.
yep.
Minor tweaks and adjustments, recycled mechanics that other studios found success in using, crossover with relevant genres, safe and measured approaches. And that's where the problem lies. These massive publishers, the ones that hold some of the most beloved franchises in gaming,
risk.
are no longer in a position where they can take any real risks. It's not that they don't want to innovate, it's that they can't afford to innovate. The sheer scale of these companies, the weight of their headcounts, and the financial...
I see it like this. You have a video game title that's going on 10 plus years, and you haven't changed it one bit. How are you maintaining a player base? Because in my opinion, if I play, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good game. Call of Duty, that perfect example. If I'm playing, let's say Call of Duty, let's start a World at War. Okay, World War II game. Let's say Call of Duty wanted to remain a World War II game, all the way through to where they are now with Modern Warfare 3. Do you think Call of Duty, if all of them were World War II games, do you think Call of Duty would be as successful as it was? I don't think it would. So, like, when they went from World War II, then they went to Black Ops 1, or to COD 4, then they went to Black Ops 1, they wanted to go back to the Cold War, Vietnam era. Then they went to the future with Black Ops 2, 2025, which is now, which is crazy. Then they were like, okay, we're going back to the past with actually no, was it the past or the future? I can't remember. Then they were like, okay, let's do this with aliens, with Ghost. Instead of zombies, they had aliens, and I thought Ghost was fine compared to what Ghost is now, or like other titles that came after Ghost. Ghost is way too good. Then you had the space theme, when space games are like the new like trend to follow. And then you had back to military style, like modern. And then you had the whole modern series, which is where they are now. But then back before that, they had another World War II game, another, I don't even know if it was considered World War II, it was like fantasy World War II. Yeah, but like they're okay to do that, to follow trends and to follow like what is popular now, but they're afraid to try something innovative and be the new trend. If that's throughout my whole rambling, though, I was trying to get at. They're afraid. Everybody's afraid to pull the trigger on something new, even though it could make them a buttload of money. They just don't want to risk it because they have titles that are like 10 plus old, and for some reason people still buy them, whether they're good or not.
Commitments they are tied to with every single release mean that every game that they produce has to be a guaranteed success, or at least in their eyes it is. They're too afraid to break the wheel. When a single game can now cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop, and when the livelihood of thousands of employees...
That's also the problem, is that it's getting expensive, air quotes, to make video games, but yet games that are winning people's votes and people's like playing more are games that are made like by 2 or 3 people, and they probably only put less than, I want to say, 50K or more into their game. Like Side, Bellatro made it to a Video Games Awards and could have won Game of the Year. Like, versus Astrobot, which is a PlayStation game. Like, a big title. Black Myth Wukong, I don't know if that's made by a small studio. They made crazy numbers in less than 2 weeks. They over 2 million in less than 2 weeks, which was crazy. And that's just Steam. Oh no.
These are tied to that game's success, innovation starts looking less like an opportunity and more like a liability. This is why so many publishers latch on to legacy IPs with a death grip. Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, The Elder Scrolls, Diablo, these franchises have been around for decades. And while they still sell, they've reached the point where they're just repeating themselves with minor adjustments.
Like I said, the biggest culprits is EA's with their sports games. I think the only thing that they do now is make a new one, but use the same assets and whatever, and just update the roster. So you're paying for a roster change. Whereas someone leaving a specific team or new players or new football players or soccer players coming in to the league that they got to be put in. That's literally all they are now. Like, I don't think any of them have done anything innovative in forever. Same with the wrestling games also.
The problem isn't necessarily that these games are bad. Some of them definitely are, but plenty of people are still enjoying them, and they often deliver at least a...
I don't think they're enjoying them. I think, well, it could be an enjoying thing, but I think some people are just so brain dead. I don't even know if I can say that, but I think they are. Like, they just, oh, a new Call of Duty's out, well, let me go buy it. Oh, a new Skyrim's out for its 12th time, well, let me go buy it. Like, some people are just, like, they're just that invested into it. And then you sit, and it's weird to see, like, from the outside and be like, why are you buying this Call of Duty? Even though you tell me you hate what Call of Duty has become, but yet you're going to buy it at day one. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of gamers, what we're going to have to start doing is and this is going to be crazy, but we need to start voting with our money. People need to realize that gamers pay for games. We pay the subscription services. We pay for the games. And we just got to start voting with our money. That's like, we're going to have to start doing that because the more gaming gets big and more mainstream, a lot of bad games are going to be coming out. And the best way to make sure this doesn't fully take over in gaming is don't buy it. Keep your money. Use it for something else. We're going to have to do that.
Competent experience, but they don't move forward. They don't take any meaningful risks because they can't. The industry is locked into a cycle where studios are specializing in a singular franchise, pouring all of their resources into maintaining them rather than exploring new ideas. And the bigger these games get, the harder it becomes to justify taking a chance on anything else. The irony is that's not how these franchises were born in the first place. When Blizzard made Diablo, when Bethesda made The Elder Scrolls, when BioWare launched Dragon Age, these games were massive gambles. They were made by smaller teams operating with fewer resources, but a vision that was driven by creativity rather than market expectations. These weren't sure bets. These were passion projects that resonated with players because they did something new. But as these franchises became juggernauts and they turned into multi-billion-dollar investments, that creative spark got buried under layers of corporate oversight. And now these companies can't take the same risks that made them successful in the first place because they aren't just playing with their own money anymore. Investors demand safe returns, and the safest return is a predictable one, rehashing what's...
That's the problem. Investors can vote with their money, and they can talk about how what they think their video game should do, and it's usually not do anything innovative because they just want money. But players, we want to play something new. We want to have that experience when we used to go to midnight releases at GameStops, get the new GTA 4 or whatever, put it in and then fall in love. Like that's the type of gaming we want back. And we'll never get that because the way the world is now. Like midnight, I don't think midnight. I know there's a video going around of like midnight releases or whatever, and it just shows you like how much our world has changed. Like we don't need to do that anymore. We don't have to wait line in the cold at 12 a.m. to get the new GTA 4 or 5 or Call of Duty or whatever. I think I did do one, but I live in a small town, so we're not gonna have like 50,000 people lined up at a GameStop at night. But I did. Oh, what game was it? Trying to think of the game. Dang, oh yeah. Well, Skyrim I did do that for, and there was another game, but we'll use Skyrim because I can't remember the other one. But Skyrim, I lined up. There was like 10 people. They let in 2 at a time, and we just kept going in and out. That was those times. Like I did it with my dad. I think at the time, I think I did. That was back in 2011. So like so much has changed in just 10 years. It's crazy.
Already been done. I talked about this in my Path of Exile 2 review, but the game actually felt like a true, genuine evolution of the ARPG genre. The slower, more methodical combat, the intricate boss mechanics, the build crafting, the power scaling, slowly reaching that PoE 1-like map clearing. It all felt like a natural step forward. It wasn't afraid to be complex, to challenge the player, to demand more from them. Heck, instead of dumbing down any of the systems in their game, they just provided clearer instructions, more explanations. They even put in videos on how the game works inside the game. Grinding Gear Games took risks and it paid off because they still have the freedom to experiment. They gave themselves that freedom. Then you go and look at Diablo 4, a franchise as old as Diablo, made by a company as massive as Blizzard. They should have been able to do the same thing. Hell, it should have been even more.
I mean, they took a huge gamble with Diablo Immortal. They made it a mobile game, and I know a lot of people hated that crap.
Than that, and yet they didn't. They played it safe. They streamlined mechanics, flattened the skill ceiling, and prioritized accessibility.
I do gotta admit, they pulled the trigger, but they pulled the trigger on bad stuff that has nothing to do with their format. And BioWare, EA, and Ubisoft are now all put on, in my opinion, somewhat on a watch. Ubisoft's on life support. If they don't come up with another good game, I don't think Ubisoft will be a company soon. BioWare, they're putting all their eggs in the basket with Mass Effect 5. And they better be at, like, in my opinion, it should be somewhat with good writing like Mass Effect 2 was. I want to feel like my choices really mattered to where people could die. My favorite NPCs could die. Nothing like Andromeda. Nothing like Mass Effect 3, even though I know they're going to continue the story for Mass Effect 3. I want nothing like it. I want everything like Mass Effect 2. And I think your game will just do so well. So well. It will put BioWare back on the track. And biggest thing to do is LA Noir had this clip. I wanted to try to find it to play it. But Cole and his partner are driving, and he's asking about the war, and Cole's like, I follow one thing: when you're friends, don't bring politics and wives up. You can add you can add the war to that also. And I think that's what gaming needs to do. Gaming needs to not bring up politics. Don't matter what side you believe in. Keep politics away. Keep the outside away from the video game space. Most video games are fantasy or something non-realistic. We do not need to hear about who did what or this thing or that thing. We don't care. Gamers just want a game. We want to escape.
Over depth. Not because the developers lack talent, but because Blizzard couldn't afford to alienate a single segment of their audience. They had too much on the line. They have shareholders to appease. Now they have Microsoft to appease. They weren't just making a game. They were managing an investment. This is one of the fundamental problems with the industry today. This is one of the reasons why players are feeling like they're not getting enough out of the games that they're buying. When a game reaches a certain scale,
like I say, players need to vote with their money. Don't buy.
When a company grows too big, it becomes risk averse by nature. The same studios that built their success on innovation and creativity are now paralyzed by their own size. The bigger they get, the less freedom they have to create anything new. They have to keep their games marketable, predictable, and most of all, safe. And the customer is left with a competent yet uninspired product, a game that functions and entertains some of the time, but otherwise doesn't fulfill that vision of what could have been. And the longer that these franchises go on, well, the more that hunger grows within the player base, the more that nagging feeling that we aren't getting what we deserve, that these games aren't getting what they deserve. Because we had a vision for what these games would be. We played them when we grew up or whatever it might have been, whenever it might have been. And we had a vision for what it would look like in the future. And we thought that they would push boundaries and they would innovate and they would change things, but that just didn't happen because these games, these companies are trapped essentially by their own success. I think that's one of the reasons why we see so much unrest in today's gaming audience. It's because the players don't feel like they're getting what they deserve because these games are going.
Not even that. It's like we're not getting heard either. Because they label most gamers as racist or xenophobic or homophobic or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, gamers just don't care about, like, your identity politics or your regular politics. Like, we don't care about the real world. We don't at all. It was the same thing with D&D back in the day when it was coming out. People were labeling it satanic and stuff. And it's like, people just want to create a fantasy space. Yeah, some people might go a little too overboard with stuff. But that's people. People go overboard with a lot of things. Some people just want to be, like, disassociate from the world and create a fantasy scape in their mind or in a video game. Like in writing, whatever it is. People just want to escape reality. I think that's the biggest thing.
Going up in price. They're being sold to us bit by bit, but we're just getting more of the same. I think that's one of the reasons why I have a lot of respect for the Zelda series or for Final Fantasy for that matter, where at least they do try to innovate. They try to do something different. Final Fantasy 16, love it or hate it, is a completely different game than any other Final Fantasy game that's out there. Personally, I love it. I think the Bahamut fight is one of the most peak moments in video
Final
games
Fantasy,
ever.
So I can't talk
so
about
good.
it.
It's insanely good. But that's why I have a lot of respect, and I think it's great when I see talent start to leave some of these companies, when I see the ex-Witcher 3.
I think if they leave to start a new company, it's good, but they just leave just to leave, that's bad. Because that shows there's more issues happening behind the scenes than just difference of opinions.
Director want to move on because he wants to do something new. He wants to innovate. He wants to create. And I think in a lot of cases, with the situation a lot of these companies are in right now, maybe it's that these legacy IPs just don't have anywhere else to go. You have to recognize when they actually get to their peak, maybe we don't need another Witcher. Sometimes you have to have.
I think a lot of people are upset with Witcher 4 because of the whole. I already talked about this last reaction video, but I know a lot of people are upset with Witcher 4 not starring Geralt. But like, I think if you've seen the way the games are going, you already knew this outcome was gonna happen. So I wasn't really surprised. And a lot of people downvoting it because it's a female main character, blah blah blah. It's because the way I see it, through some people's minds, is that we're getting forced to like a character, and then sometimes we do like the character, but then they start throwing in all these other world problems like, oh, women have it so tough compared to a man, or man, look at this. Like, it gets tiring to constantly deal with that. Like, and that's not to say you can't have a female lead. Lara Croft with the Tomb Raider series. I forget. There's one girl named Mary. I forget what game she's from, but it was like a Max Payne. She had like a katana on her back and 2 pistols. It was like a Devil May Cry / Max Payne type game. That game was fantastic. That was a female lead. Mass Effect, a lot of people love playing the female Shepard because she had more personality when you're doing a good or bad playthrough. Whereas the main character, the male version of the main character, he was really good if you just wanted to do an evil playthrough because the way his like vocal tone was. So there, you can have a successful main character be a female, but those games didn't constantly try to throw like reality at us to be like, look at this, look at this. I think Tomb Raider wouldn't have done as good, and also it helps that it's a character that looks good. If I'm going to spend 20 plus hours or more looking at a character, male or female, they should look good. I don't want to look at someone that doesn't look appeasing to look at. I think that's not controversial to say, but
Have the insight to be able to realize something like that. You have to move on and go do something new. And I think that's exactly what he's doing. But investor interests, legacy IP, lack of creative freedom, these aren't the only things that he's leaving that company for. No. There's something else. There's a bigger issue that's out there in the industry. One that I think has caused a lot of games to fail, and I think it's going to cause a lot more games to fail. And the Witcher 3 director didn't leave just for creative reasons. He left to get away from the people. Conrad didn't just leave CD Projekt Red to make Blood of the Dawnwalker. He left because the company was too big to work with and the people were too much to deal with. In the interview, Conrad continues with, "We have a studio where we work with the people and among them, not like at a bigger studio where it's harder. I felt that a smaller team is capable of doing more because the communication is inside the..."
Smaller teams are good, but also when you're trying to create something very massive, it's going to take way longer. And then to cut time, you're probably going to outsource. And then when you start outsourcing, that's when you might as well just stayed with the big studio. I still think there's something else that happened. We'll see if he talks about it, but I think something else might have happened.
The team, and it's easier to speak about the vision. It's easier to feel the creative fire and to do something special. Now, that's how he framed it in the PC Gamer interview. However, I feel like that's a bit of a revision because I remember that this isn't the first time that we heard about Conrad leaving CD Projekt Red, because he didn't leave because of creative freedom or team size. He left because of bullying allegations. See, because back in 2021, there was a report that an internal investigation had cleared him of any wrongdoing. He was accused of bullying other employees, and yet he still ended up resigning, saying that he felt immense sadness over the situation and how it unfolded and the stress and anxiety that he may have caused his coworkers. And I think that's the real story here, not just why he left, but why so many industry veterans are leaving some of these massive studios. It's a complete cultural shift on how games are made. Game development has always been messy. It's been full of friction. Great ideas do not come from agreeing with one another. They come from arguing, debating, pushing back. But
I think that's also like bullying is a weird topic, mostly as someone who has dealt with it a lot. Difference of opinions and then someone calling your opinion stupid or whatever is not bullying, in my mind. Harassing or like downplaying your creativity or whatever, that could be somewhat considered it. And then physical, and then probably mental. Like those two, I think, are the best way to describe bullying.
Last decade.
But if it's someone like you're in a team creating something new, and he singles you out and says your idea was stupid, that's just criticism. Take it or leave it. It's criticism. It isn't bullying.
The industry has become terrified of conflict, toxic positivity, fear of confrontation, and the death of accountability. Timothy Kane, one of the original minds behind Fallout, has seen this firsthand. He talked about it in a YouTube video last year, describing how the very foundation of how developers work together has completely changed. He told a story about this time where he was working at Carbine Studios, where he had tried to implement something as simple as whiteboard listing the top 10 most urgent tasks. Back in the Fallout days, this worked perfectly. People would check the board, see what needed to be done, and get to work. Fast forward 10 years, and the same system is completely unacceptable. Developers told him that if their names appeared on that board, they would quit on the spot. Even if their names weren't included, they still refused because people would figure out who.
Wouldn't you want that? I would want that. I'm creating a game with like 30 plus people. Okay. I want to know what I need to do to help get this game going. And if there's 10 things that need to be done, maybe you need to start separating it with people. Like, why is that not a thing? What?
Who was responsible. Think about how insane that is. The idea that public accountability was so offensive to these people that they would rather leave the company than have their work attached to their name.
Let
this
them
is
leave.
the industry that Conrad left, an industry where calling out a problem is treated as a problem itself. Kane also talked about arguing in game development, the kind of back and forth, high energy debates that shape great games. He and another creative would scream at each.
That's the problem. Like, I think now you can't really debate anymore. You can't debate in politics. You can't debate with just like what you like. Debating has fallen because a lot of, like you said earlier, a lot of people just don't know how to argue. And they also don't know how to take criticism or responsibility for what they said. That's, I don't know if people had this, but when I was in high school, I graduated after 2016. But my senior and junior year, we had a debate class, an actual class, not a club, not something you do after school. Like, it was a whole class dedicated to learning how to debate. And the way it worked, they picked a topic, trying to think. Yes, some of it was political, some of it wasn't. Let's just say, does pineapple belong on pizza? And they'll vote. They'll put a line in the middle of the classroom, put people on the yes side and put people on no side. Even though you might not like it and you get put on the yes side, you still had to debate the people that say no, and you had to come up with a good debate. And it was fun, even when it was political and like people were getting heated over it. Like, people still took it and were like, okay, yeah, this is good. And some people, it probably opened their eyes to be like, yo, wait a minute, I didn't even think about that. Like, that's the problem with debating, is that people are so emotionally invested now, and everybody's in their feels so much that they just can't accept anything that isn't their reality or their facts. And that's just how it is now. Will it change? Hopefully, but do I see it changing? No. Because everyone's feelings get catered to now. It's crazy.
Each other over design choices, jumping up to scribble things on whiteboards, pacing back and forth, fighting over the best solutions, not because they were angry, but because they cared, because they wanted to challenge one another. And guess what? People in the office couldn't handle it. They were told to stop. People were too uncomfortable. This is the industry now, too fragile to handle conflict, too afraid to push each other to do better. And when you strip away
Yeah, it's not even the video game industry. That's just every industry now.
conflict, when you strip away accountability, what's left? Safe, predictable, uninspired games. There's a reason why so many of today's biggest releases feel hollow, like they were designed by a committee rather than creatives, because they were. Ideas aren't being fought for anymore. People aren't being challenged. The people that are making games don't have to prove their ideas in an environment where others can push back and make them better. And instead, once they're exposed to oxygen, once they're exposed to the consumer, we are the ones that are pushing back on those games and those ideas, and that's why those games are failing. But I don't want to pretend like this is just a cultural thing. It's a two-headed dragon. One head is fragility, and the other is the sheer size of these companies and how difficult it is for these developers to get anything done, for decisions to be made, or to keep the creative vision alive. I think that both are true for Conrad and Rebel Wolves. It's part culture, and the other is that, well, yeah, a smaller team can get more done. And that's the thing. That's the reason why I don't see industry layoffs or developers striking out on their own as a bad thing. It's good for them. It's good for us, and it's ultimately good for some of these larger companies. The gaming industry needs to downsize. These companies are too big, too bloated, too slow to adapt. They are overmanaged and underinspired, running on outdated models that worked in the past but are now crumbling under their own weight. Game developers are going to hate to hear me say this, but let's be real for a second. What does a company like Ubisoft need 20,000 employees for? What does...
Yeah, Ubisoft is, I would say, they put out a lot but they don't put out like major things that requires a lot of people. I mean, CD Projekt Red makes fantastic RPGs, and I don't think they have that many people. I think they're barely under 1,000. Like, I don't even think they touch 1,000. Um, Call of Duty, as much as they just reskin and redo, I don't think they need as much people as they have. In my opinion, they need a whole new cast to put the franchise better. They need to try something innovative because soon, what these companies don't realize is that some people are gonna grow tired and wake up. They're gonna be like, "Why am I doing this?" Yeah, some people won't, but you better hope that the people that don't are making you the money. Ubisoft, I think, if they don't pull out of anything controversial or uh, badly written or whatever, they need to put all their eggs in the Siege basket. Siege is the only reason why Ubisoft is even relevant. And there's two things you can do with Siege: innovate it, make it new and enjoyable to entice people to play it again, and keep the new players or old players that are still playing, and or B, sell it for as much as possible so that way it doesn't die. That's your two options. Someone will pick it up and someone might ruin it, but it wouldn't be Ubisoft's problem at that point.
CD Projekt Red use 1,000 plus developers for? Why does EA need 5,000 employees? These companies are industrialized. They aren't making games, they're manufacturing them.
Yep.
Every role is so hyper specialized, so compartmentalized that the creative vision gets lost in the noise. There's just too many employees.
I mean, look at the Resident Evil franchise. I want to say, I can't remember. I think Resident Evil 7 or the one with the Lycans and the baby and Rose and whoever. That one was the last recent. All the rest of them have been remakes. Like, even they're afraid to do something new.
Art teams are making assets for mechanics that aren't even finished. Writers are drafting dialogue for quests that still need to get reworked. Animators are creating cutscenes for characters whose designs are still in flux. And all of this is going through layers upon layers of approval, bouncing between
Yeah, the problem is, to make a good trailer for your video game is not CGI, it's actual gameplay. I ain't talking about gameplay that would spoil the game for it. Like, if you're making a fighting game, you should have somewhat of fighting cutscenes and fighting gameplay in your trailer. You shouldn't have complete CGI. Like, that's also the reason why Concord probably lost a lot of money, is that they put so much money in these stupid animations for characters for a 5v5 hero shooter that doesn't need a background or story, because it's a 5v5 hero shooter. You should make that later when you have the money to spend, not money that was given to you to hurry up and put the game out.
managers, producers.
It also failed because they charged him $40 for basically a format that's for free. Like, Street Nova's free, Overwatch was free when that was this competitor. Marvel Rivals is free. All these are hero shooters. Hero shooters, I think, always are going to have to be free because of Overwatch and all these other games that are coming out after it. The only way you make money with those games is skins. Skins.
Producers, directors, executives, and shareholders, until whatever passion was there in the beginning is completely gone. This is why so many AAA games feel so empty, because they're not made, they're assembled, they are pieced together in a factory, polished just enough to be marketable, and then shoved out the door. And it's only going to get worse as these companies throw more bodies at their problems. Meanwhile, the most exciting, most creative, most successful games in the industry right now, well, they're made from smaller companies. FromSoft, less than 300 people delivering masterpieces like Elden Ring and Armored Core 6. Game Science.
My hot take with Elden Ring, it was not that good. I got a whole let's play on it. I didn't beat the game, least not on camera. But uh, it just when you're going and having an open world and you're having to put in things, the worst thing you could do is repeat bosses. 1 or 2 is fine. 4 or 5 is crazy. I fought the Godskins I don't know how many times that Let's Play, and oh my god, I hated seeing them. Hated it.
Less than 200 people worked on Black Myth Wukong. Larian Studios, less than 500 people creating one of the greatest RPGs ever made in Baldur's Gate 3. Hello Games, less than 100 people building and maintaining an entire universe in No Man's Sky and also still working on...
I do got to give them props. So, like they could have ran for the hills and they stuck with it to this day, and they made so much content for that game. Like they didn't just take the L and run away. They're like, no, we have passion and love for this. We're gonna do it, and it's good now.
Light no fire. How does that even happen? I mean, Minecraft was only created by a handful of developers and it became one of the best-selling games of all time. Terraria.
I mean, Minecraft's a simple game though. Same with Terraria. Terraria is a simple game also.
Was made by 11 people and it sold 44 million copies. Countless indie games made by teams of under 10 people breaking through, selling millions because they are made with passion and vision, not corporate mandates. And none of this is a coincidence. Smaller teams are more agile, they're more creative, they're more in sync with one another. It's so much easier to be able to communicate. They don't have to deal with bureaucracy, corporate oversight, or marketing-driven decision-making. They can just make games how they were meant to be made, with heart, with identity, with purpose. So when I see these massive companies laying off thousands of people, when I see these bloated studios struggling to survive, when I see experienced leadership leave, I don't see that as the industry collapsing. I see that as the industry correcting itself. Yeah. These companies grew too big, too fast, too inefficient. They lost touch with what made them great in the first place. They need to downsize. They need to split apart. They need to stop pumping out.
A lot of, it's like that saying, when there's one spoiled apple in the basket, the rest become rotted or something like that. It's the same saying when there's one bad actor in your studio. And then the whole studio is going to suffer from it. And like I said, BioWare's on life support. Ubisoft's definitely on life support. EA is now falling down from what they have been. Like all these studios all these big ones are going to be put under a microscope now, and we're going to see if they can handle the heat.
Soulless, committee-driven products and let developers make real games again. Because when you strip away all of the corporate nonsense, when you break down these teams into the people that actually care about making games, that's when you get something authentic. You know, when I made my video where I was talking about how they wanted to raise the price of games to $100, one of the excuses they gave was how expensive it was to make games today, and also how developer wages have increased over the years. And the funny thing is, you know, sitting back and thinking about it, the reason why they're spending so much money on these games is likely because of inefficiency. I worked in construction. I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you right now, the vast majority of money that is wasted on a project of any size or any scope oftentimes is bad communication and wasted time. And I guarantee that's what these companies are suffering from, because you have people that are working on the wrong thing at the wrong time or spending money on the wrong thing. If you're a smaller company, that doesn't happen as much. And that's probably one of their biggest weaknesses they have. And beyond that, you know, they want to talk about how they want to increase wages for developers, because if we raise the price, we'll be able to pay the developers more, even though obviously we know that their CEOs are taking way more than that to begin with. But beyond that, the funny
wasn't the like Bobby, whatever his name is, the Blizzard guy, he was like worth like 20 plus million or even more. Like and this was during the time when Activision was laying off like 200, 300 people. Yeah, that's just crazy to me.
The thing is if you have a smaller studio and you're able to stay efficient,
that man was making as much as NFL players for a 5-year contract, and he was making that yearly. That says a lot.
You're able to make really good games and stay successful, well, then you're able to spend more money on your developers in the first place. You're able to pay them more money. I think Valve is a really good example of that. Obviously, they have a lot of different things that make them money with Steam, but with that said, if you think about it, when you have less employees, but you're still making really good games and you're still maintaining really good games, well, then you could pay your employees wherever the hell you want. You're not supposed to be up there. Yeah, whatever. But I feel like in a lot of cases, when it comes to some of these companies, they just want to grow for the sake of growth. There's really nothing else behind it. They just keep throwing bodies at problems and thinking they're going to be able to make games faster, make bigger games and things like that. But I don't think that's necessarily what the players want either. So there's a lot of different issues that are at play, but I really do think it comes down to just how big these companies are, and they have to downsize. They got to bring it, they got to dial it back a little bit. Otherwise, it's just going to get out of control. And I'm predicting that Blood of the Dawnwalker is going to be a hit. I'd almost guarantee it because you have a...
Vampire games have not done that well. I think the only one, V Rising, but that was like a survival game. And I think it did pretty good well. But like Redfall did not, it bankrupt Microsoft. That game was ass. What other vampire game? Vampire Masquerade, I think it's called. I don't think they did that well. Order 18 something something, which that one was kind of not, that was more of a supernatural game. I don't think it was just vampires. Evil West, I'm playing that. I don't know if I'll stream that or not, but that game's really good. It's like a Souls-like in a way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think vampire games have done that well. So we shall see. They have to do something to really entice people to play them. We shall see.
A lot of staff that's there that are veterans of one of the greatest RPGs ever made, that have no limiting factors on how creative they can be. There, you don't have to worry about offending anybody in the office. They're all friends. Conrad said so in his interview. I just want to make a good friend, or make a good game with my friends, is what he had said in his interview. There's no restrictions there. It's an intimate environment. They're all together.
That's a problem. It's like, I hope they're friends enough to criticize each other. When they're sitting around the circle, be like, okay, we need to put this and this and this in our video games, so they can call out each other and not get heated. Because then you're just going to run to the problem with making an echo chamber of yes men. And yeah, we should do this. Yeah, we should do that. And then your game comes out and it's like, ugh, this is bad. It's like, what happened? It's because you all kept agreeing with each other. I hope that there's some discussion and discourse in that group, so that way they make a really good game. Something innovative, something new, something with talent. Something that will keep the story and keep the interest of the player.
They can easily communicate with one another and actually work in the trenches.
Yeah, the biggest thing is replayability. I don't know why, but so many of these games now that are coming out do not have replayability. They're good the first time, and that's it. And I'm not talking about shooters where you just keep going to play new matches and matches. I'm talking about like story-driven content here. A lot of them, you play the story, that's it. I don't know why. I don't know what happened with the replayability. What happened to let me go back in and do this story a different way, a different play style, or a new game plus or something.
You know, I think, when I look at some of these bigger studios, a lot of the leadership doesn't even really work on the things that they used to anymore. You have executives at these companies that used to be developers. Maybe they used to be an artist or a level designer, but now
they're all in press conferences and appeasing the investors and talking about how this game's going to make money, instead of doing what they used to do, which is sit in front of a computer and make fantastic works of art.
They're not actually doing any of that work anymore. And I think you can get so much more work done and better work done when you're right there with the employees doing the work with them.
Constantly in meetings.
And to be honest with you, and I guarantee a lot of you guys are going to click with this, how many times has it felt so much better doing the work you're doing? How much more motivated you were when your boss came to work with you?
Yes.
Doing the work that you...
That's hands down. I worked in I'll give one of my jobs for free. But I'm not doing this anymore. So I don't have to worry about doxing myself. But I worked at a grocery store, and I had one boss who would constantly sit in the back and sit on the computer and boss everybody around up front or whatever, and did not ever leave that little cubicle at all. And a lot of people resented that person. And then I had another boss that came after. That was, he, when we were short staff on the registers, he came out and he worked the register to get rid of a line of people, and a lot of people like that dude. Like it's like when the guy you're supposed to come to, or girl or whoever, uh, is there working with you, it makes it be like, oh, this dude's actually an employee, not someone that I can't associate with or whatever.
You do. That goes a long way.
It does.
Anyway, I think this is really cool. I think this game is going to turn out really well. I really like the trailer. I love the premise of the game, and I really like his motivation behind leaving. Obviously, I'm adding some of my own reasoning to it, but I would almost guarantee that's probably going to be the case. I mean, anytime you're working in an environment where you have to be afraid of what you can and can't say to people, because I could easily picture, especially at a studio the size of CD Projekt Red, especially with some of the beliefs that they have over there as well, I could totally see people getting offended, people being ashamed that they didn't get their work done, and when a boss said, hey, you didn't get your work done, they feel like a victim. That's been a growing problem. Luckily, it seems like one that's going to get fixed. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch. I'll be streaming all next month. I got a couple of really cool things I'm going to be streaming next month, so make sure you guys follow me for that. Outside of that, thank you, Starforge, for sponsoring the video. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
He was streaming on YouTube after my upload, and I went and go watch. I didn't stick for the whole thing, but I did hear about the BioWare situation and Path of Exile stuff. Give him some love. Let me copy this. So that was the video. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said, time will tell some of the stuff. I do see a change coming. The problem is the change is going to be good or bad. I think with whatever you want to call the president, with him pushing the DEI stuff, DEI at the time was a very good thing. But I think it has been weaponized to do the wrong things now. And that's not originally what it was intended for. And that's not even just for politics. That's in gaming and normal day life. Like, it's being used as a weapon. And it's losing its purpose. And I think we need to go back to what it used to be used for. Not saying DEI needs to fully disappear, but it definitely needs a whole different brand again. But time will tell if this stuff gets fixed. The dealio. Like, comment, subscribe. We're pushing to 100. Hopefully by March we're close. And then I want to hit my ultimate goal is to at least get a plaque. So I don't know what a YouTube plaque is now, but hoping I can get it. I'm not really trying to do this for the money. The ultimate job would be just sitting at home and creating content for people to enjoy and making money off on top of that. But I'm just doing this as a passion to gaming more than anything. Like, all my stuff's gonna be centered around gaming. Alright, but we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.